So I get asked all the time, how should I go to market? How should I engage with managed services providers, with MSPs, with IT service providers, and how do I get their attention? So first off, if you have not watched my Should I Go After This Market video, I've included a link and you should go watch that now because you want to make sure that you understand the market more fully before committing to the strategy. Now, that said, now that you've made the commitment that this is a market that you're interested in, here's the way that I think about it. You want to start with the message. The message is you have to say what you do and you have to educate on the why. Those are the two main things. The first thing that I say to vendors all the time in this space is I don't think you're good enough at explaining what it is you do. You want to make sure that you can very clearly say what it is that your product brings to the market and why it is different. As an example, I hear from security vendors all the time, and every one of them talks about how it makes things secure and how it makes the things less penetrable and how it less attacks of ransomware. And by the end of the explanation, I still don't understand what they do, and I don't understand how that is different from everybody else that's pitching a security solution. Be very clear about what it is you do. Start with that, please. Secondly, you then need to educate on the why. In my podcast, I ask constantly the question, why do we care? You also want to ask that question to deliver the answer to the managed services space. Because, by the way, everyone says to make more money, to sell my product in order to drive your revenue, to create more recurring revenue. These are all messages that everybody says. And when everybody says them, it doesn't matter anymore. So be very clear on what your why is so that you can bring it out to the market. Now, I want to talk for a moment about education as a strategy. I'm a big believer in this, and I will tell you that the companies that do well in here are the ones that actually take the time to understand that. Understand that you need to educate this particular market about what your value is and how you will help their business. You want to think very clearly on how you will help them with their business. That's why I've got other videos helping you understand who a managed services provider is and what they do so that you can put yourself in their shoes and then understand what is the value to their customer, i.e. the small company, as well as the value to them. And you're going to have to do a lot of education. Remember that for this market, as a general rule, does not have high sophistication on sales and marketing expertise. So you're going to be doing and delivering hand-holding on making sure that's done. That's key to your message. When you've figured those two bits out, your message and how you're going to educate, now we can talk about what's next. So the big question, where to deliver it? You figured out your message, and how do you get it out into the market? I'm going to start with what I call the traditional answer. There's a long list of channel experts who will tell you the tried and true method of the way you get out into the market, and that you have to build your brand through a relationship play. This is such a relationship business and you need to get out there. They will happily sell you an entire plan of events and webinars and educational material and content marketing that gets you out into the market. Now, it's traditional for a reason. It does traditionally work, and historically it has generally been the way that you go to market. You'll take a particular engagement and you will just start going out there and you will start working the system. You want to get your message out. You want to present in front of as many people as you can. You want to drive attention by driving them to webinars, to events, to drive them to that engagement, and you need to establish your company and ultimately a face of the company, generally that channel chief who stands up on your behalf. Now, this is a traditional way of going into this that I think works. I want to focus then on two alternate ways, the way I've been thinking about it. So the first alternate way that I want to talk about is the ecosystem approach. And I'm going to highlight Jay McBain. He's got a great graphic that shows the way the community ecosystem has sprung around IT service providers. I've included the graphic and a link to the piece. It's the way of thinking about engagement from a community perspective. You need to go into those communities and build your brand and engagement through working with each of those areas. And ultimately, you'll start working there and work your way around. Go deep in a particular one and then expand to complementary ones, or pick yourselves out a selection across the ecosystem of ecosystems and find out where you're going to go. This does work better than just blasting out the way. And Jay is right to highlight this as the much more modern approach to the way that we go out from an ecosystem perspective. You're going to latch on to a particular community. You're going to start going deep. You're going to build some relationships. You're going to get them to refer. You're going to use Seth Godin's style of raving fans and get people to start advocating on your behalf. This strategy, again, does very much work, and it's very much the modern, way of thinking of channel engagement. But I want to expose one last area of the way that I'm thinking about it. So the last and my third option for the way that we do this, and by the way, it's probably a mix of all of them, but my last one is to expose that what I think the pandemic has done has exposed the lie of the relationship business. Everyone has said over the past 20 years that this is a relationship business and you have to be out there and you have to do this. And then we had a global pandemic that shut that all down. And everyone hit their numbers. That's solution providers generally did reasonably well. That's vendors did reasonably well. Everybody hit their numbers, removing that relationship bit and moving it into digital. Everyone went to digital engagement. So for me, that pandemic experience exposes the ultimate lie about the relationship business, that you don't have to put people on planes and fly them around continually to build relationships. In fact, what I like to think about more now is the way that we do this digitally. There's a lot of companies that entirely engage all online with proper, true community collaborative engagement. The model I like to think about is actually gaming. Let me observe for you that there is an entire world of people dedicated to growing engagement and relationships with small transactional sales in things like World of Warcraft. The individual buyer is a small per unit value, and we use digital engagement to help engage them, bring them into the fold, and keep them there. There is a component of physical to that. That's why companies like Blizzard put on conventions, but they focus on the digital engagement. And for me, what I would encourage most vendors to be thinking about now is how am I going to involve more in a true engaging digital way? Because additionally, I don't think everything has to be heavy handshake, backslapping engagement from that perspective, particularly if I want to look at new communities and I want to look at more diverse communities, I can engage them in different terms. The pandemic exposed the lie of the relationship business. You can exploit that by leveraging digital means. Now I'm going to give a couple of additional insights in here. I think there's not enough vendor engagement who are going to market by investing in existing communities. There's some new grassroots efforts that are going on that I think that vendors can get involved with. And it's more than just writing a check to get your advertisement up there. It's actually putting resources, human headcounts to engage with those online communities and getting much more in deep. Building online relationships by being valuable and creating a bond between the organization and those communities. You need to be more of empowerment out to the team so that they can solve more issues directly on their own. It shouldn't need to be run up the flagpole or ask management, but if you've got somebody who can actually go to bat for your organization, solve problem in a community, and engage with them with proper solutions, you're going to go a long way. You also, as a vendor, need to recognize that you are unable to keep up with this community from a technical perspective. Oftentimes I find that vendors are trying to do this too much, and you just simply can't. By the time they get expertise in your product, they will generally be better at its usage than most people you can possibly put on your support desk. Because in particular, your good support people, you're going to promote out. And oftentimes their lead techs are very senior people or the business owner themselves. So understand that you're not able to compete with them technically. Also recognize that for me, one of the things that I focus on is not every program has to infinitely scale. One of the things that I find vendors focus too much on is the idea that every single program must scale all the time. It must grow with them the entire time. It doesn't. You can sometimes do programs that are designed to help a smaller subgroup grow in a particular way. This is a great way to do A/B testing, to do experimentation on programs. Find out what works or what doesn't, understand the limitations, and know it doesn't have to scale for everybody. So, my last sort of parting thought. I think that there is an investment in online communities that is not being done very effectively right now. By the way, my incredible bias. I've built an entire engagement strategy around digital engagement. I'll tell you it is, for me, it's putting my money where my mouth is. I'm living and breathing the strategy that I believe, which is get in front of these solution providers in a true digital way and not rely on physical engagement all the time. I'm one of those guys who I'm a million miler. I've done 10, 15 years of flying around to conferences. And I think I can do a better job of engagement, and my metrics tell me that, by focusing on digital engagement. So that's my example, that's my thinking on it, and my bias. I hope this has been helpful. I hope these videos of how I think about things and what I tell investors have helped give you some additional insights. If you've got questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. There are links right on mspradio.com where you can click and engage, and I look forward to further conversations.